Hi, thanks for joining us here at Red Studio Talks. I'm Linus,
And I'm Genevieve.
and we're diving into a really fascinating topic today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
It was suggested by Bobby, and it's something I think we've all been grappling with.
Yeah.
It's the whole question of social morality and ethics in today's world.
Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere, right? You see it
Mm.
in the news all the time, headlines about corporate scandals, politicians behaving badly,
Oh, yeah.
and even online, all the debates about cancel culture and what's considered right and wrong these days.
It's like the Wild West out there.
It really is.
So I guess to kind of ground ourselves, before we get too far, let's start with some definitions.
Mm.
What exactly are we talking about when we say social morality and ethics?
Yeah, okay, good point, because
Mhm.
those terms get tossed around a lot. So let's break it down. Morality. Think of that as your own personal sense of right and wrong. That
Yeah.
inner voice that tells you what you believe is good or bad. And ethics is kind of like the practical application of that morality. It's how those beliefs play out in your interactions with others and in society as a whole.
So morality is more like the internal compass, and ethics is how you navigate the world based on that compass.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And one of the things that comes up a lot when people talk about declining morality is the weakening of traditional institutions.
Yeah.
Things like family and religion that used to be the bedrock of moral guidance.
Right. Those institutions definitely played a huge role for centuries in shaping values and passing them down through generations. But as those institutions have evolved, or, for some people, maybe become less central in their lives, it does raise the question of, okay, what fills that void, especially in a world that feels, increasingly chaotic and complex?
Yeah, and we're also seeing a real rise in individualism, right? Which is great in many ways. It encourages personal freedom, critical thinking, but it also makes you wonder, does it tip the scales too far?
Yeah.
Does it sometimes lead to a kind of me first mentality where it's harder to prioritize the collective good, the well-being of the community as a whole?
Yeah, it's like a tightrope walk, isn't it? Trying to balance individual freedom with social responsibility. And then you add on top of all of that technology.
Oh, yeah.
And think about it. We're more connected than ever before.
Right.
Which is amazing. But that also opens up a whole new set of ethical dilemmas. Things like cyberbullying, online harassment, the spread of misinformation. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame.
It is. And the thing with the internet is it can create the sense of anonymity, right? Where people feel like they're not really accountable for their actions, which can really lead to a decrease in empathy, that ability to understand and share the feelings of others.
And I think it spills over into the real world, too. There's a lot of talk these days about economic pressures forcing people to make really tough choices. Like in a hyper-competitive environment, does the need to make a profit to succeed sometimes end up overshadowing ethical considerations?
Yeah, that's a real tension, right? You see it with companies cutting corners to save money or individuals feeling pressure to do something unethical to get ahead. And it makes you ask some tough questions about, corporate responsibility and how we incentivize businesses to actually prioritize ethics.
And we can't forget the media in all of this,
Yeah.
especially social media. It's like every time you log on, you're bombarded with negativity and stories about moral transgressions. Does that constant exposure, do you think it actually warps our perception of reality and contributes to this feeling that everything is kind of going downhill ethically?
Well, it's definitely something to be aware of the media, especially social media. It thrives on negativity. That's what grabs our attention. And the algorithms are designed to keep feeding us that content. But it's important to remember that it's not the whole picture. It's a very distorted view of reality. It's focusing on the most extreme examples to get clicks and views.
So we've talked about some of the factors that might be contributing to this sense of declining social morality. But what about the potential consequences? I mean, if this trend continues, where could it lead us?
That's the big question, right? And I think one of the most significant consequences is a decline in social trust. When people feel like ethical behavior is slipping, they start losing trust in each other and institutions and society as a whole. And when that trust erodes, it becomes so much harder to navigate differences, to find common ground.
Right. It's like you need that foundation of trust to cooperate, to work together to solve problems.
Exactly. And without it, you risk increased social conflict, especially in societies that are diverse, where people have different values and beliefs. It's just harder to bridge those divides when there's a lack of trust.
And it impacts our democratic institutions too, right? I mean, if people see leaders behaving unethically, it can lead to this sense of disillusionment, apathy. Like, why bother participating if the system is rigged?
Absolutely. Ethical leadership is crucial for a healthy democracy. I mean, when leaders act unethically, it undermines people's faith in the system as a whole.
Yeah.
It leads to cynicism and decreased participation in civic life. And
It ultimately, I think, leads to a decline in well-being.
yeah.
For individuals and for society as a whole. We see more crime, more inequality, just a lower quality of life for everyone.
Yeah, it's a concerning trend for sure. When ethical behavior is lacking, it creates this climate of fear and distrust and uncertainty, and that impacts everyone negatively. But, I don't want to end on a totally bleak note. I do believe that there are things we can do to foster a more ethical and moral society. It's not a lost cause.
That's good to hear. I mean, where do we even begin? How do we start to address this complex issue?
Well, I think one really important step is stronger moral education in schools. Let's equip young people with the critical thinking skills and the ethical frameworks they need to navigate complex situations and make sound moral judgments.
It's like giving them the tools to be good citizens in a world that's not always black and white.
Exactly. And it's not just about kids either. We need ethical leadership at every level of society and business, government, our communities.
Yeah, leaders really set the tone, right?
They do. They have a huge responsibility to set the example, to be held accountable for their actions. And that means promoting transparency, integrity, a genuine commitment to ethical decision-making in all contexts.
And what about us? What can we as individuals, everyday people, do to contribute to a more ethical society?
Well, I think civic engagement is key. Getting involved in your community, volunteering, speaking out against injustice. These are all ways to put those moral values into action and to strengthen those social bonds.
Yeah, it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
And, we talked about the downsides of technology, but it can also be a powerful tool for positive change, right?
Absolutely. We can use technology to raise awareness about ethical issues, to facilitate dialogue, to connect with people who have different perspectives, and to combat online negativity, to promote more constructive conversations. It's a tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
Right. And I think finally, it's crucial for all of us to become more critical consumers of media.
Yeah.
We have to be aware of biases,
Yeah.
question the information that we're presented with, and not let sensationalism and negativity dominate our worldview.
Yeah. Critical media literacy is so important in today's world. We need to be able to discern fact from fiction, identify manipulative tactics, and form our own informed opinions.
So, Bobby, and everyone listening, what are your thoughts on all of this? This is a complex issue, but it's a conversation worth having. And I think by being mindful of our own actions, holding our leaders accountable, and engaging in thoughtful discussions, we can all play a part in creating a more ethical and moral society.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your perspectives on this. Share your reflections, your ideas in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on Red Studio Talks. I'm Linus.
And I'm Genevieve.
We'll see you next time.